The hospital walls trembled with the sound of her cries, the kind of sound that came from somewhere deep inside the body, where love and pain lived side by side. Amelia gripped the edge of the bed, her knuckles white, her heart pounding harder than the contractions that tore through her. Every breath felt like a battle. The nurse wiped sweat from her forehead, whispering that she was doing great. But nothing about this moment felt great. Not anymore. Not since she looked over her shoulder and realized Ryan wasn't there. He had been standing by the window minutes ago, his phone pressed to his ear, his face turned away from her. She had heard his voice low and angry and cruel. The name he said still burned in her mind. Melissa. She knew that name. She had seen the messages hidden under work contacts. She had wanted to believe they meant nothing. But now, here she was in a hospital bed bringing their child into the world while he stood outside arguing with the woman who had replaced her. The doctor's voice broke through the chaos, heart rate dropping. "We need to move quickly. Amelia, your baby is in distress." She reached for Ryan, but her fingers caught only air. The door swung open and closed, and he was gone. She heard the sound of his voice fading down the hall, something about needing space, needing air, and then nothing. Just the echo of abandonment. The monitors screamed her name in panic. Nurses moved fast, the doctor shouting orders. Her world spun white and cold. She wasn't afraid of pain anymore. She was afraid of silence, of the emptiness he left behind. She wanted to scream his name, but she swallowed it because she knew it wouldn't matter. He had already chosen not to hear it. "Push now, Amelia. You have to push." The nurse's words cut through the fog. She pushed with everything she had, with all the anger, all the grief, all the pieces of love that had just shattered. The world blurred into a haze of tears and defluorescent light, and then a sound pierced through it, the tiny cry of life, the sound of her son. They laid him on her chest, and for a moment time stopped. He was small, red, trembling. His fists curled tight against the world. She touched his face, and the weight of him broke her open in a different way. Not from pain, but from something pure and powerful. She whispered a promise into the air. "I'm here, baby. I'm here, and I'll never let you be alone." But even as she held him, her eyes flicked to the door, half expecting Ryan to return with excuses, with flowers, with regret. But the doorway stayed empty. The world outside that door had closed to her, and she felt it in her bones. He wasn't coming back. The nurse asked for the baby's name, and Amelia said softly, "Noah, because he came after the flood, because maybe he was her second chance at surviving." When the room finally quieted, the monitors slowed to steady beeps. The doctor left and the nurse dimmed the lights. Amelia stayed awake, her newborn sleeping against her chest. She stared at the ceiling where shadows danced from the hallway light, and she made herself a promise that would carry her through every lonely night ahead. She would never need anyone again. She would build a life for her son out of nothing but strength and love, and she would never let a man decide her worth again. Outside the hospital window, the city glowed distant and indifferent. But inside that small room, under the hum of machines and the scent of new life, a broken heart began to rebuild itself piece by fragile piece. 2 days passed since the night the world shattered. Amelia lay in the dim hospital room, her body weak but her heart even weaker. The sound of beeping machines felt like a cruel reminder that life went on even when love did not. She looked down at her newborn son Noah, sleeping peacefully in her arms, unaware that the man who promised forever had vanished without. A trace she had called Ryan again and again, each time straight to voicemail, until the last call was met with a cold, robotic voice. "The number you are trying to reach has been disconnected." A nurse entered, holding a clipboard and a kind but uneasy smile. "Amelia, we need to talk about your insurance." The nurse's voice was soft, but the words struck like ice. "Your husband called the billing office last week and canceled your coverage." Amelia felt the room tilt around her. "What do you mean, canceled?" The nurse hesitated. "I'm sorry, but without insurance, we need a payment before discharge." Her stomach dropped. She had less than $100 in her account. She had left her job in her last trimester, trusting Ryan when he said, "I'll handle everything." She tried to speak, but her throat burned. Tears blurred her vision. She pressed her lips against her son's tiny head, whispering a prayer for strength. The nurse offered a sympathetic nod before leaving, and for the first time in her life, Amelia felt completely invisible. She was a woman with a newborn child and nowhere to go. No husband, no family, no safety net. A few minutes later, a deep voice from the hallway caught her attention. Firm, calm, with something commanding in it. Someone arguing quietly with the nurse outside. "I'll cover the bill," he said. "I said it's fine. Just process the discharge under my name," the nurse protested. "Sir, it's a large amount. This isn't charity," the man replied. "This is responsibility." The door opened and a tall man stepped inside. Sunlight from the hallway framed him, his dark hair slightly tousled, his eyes sharp and unreadable. Amelia's breath caught. She had seen that face somewhere before on the cover of magazines. Ethan Vale, the reclusive tech millionaire she'd once heard about on the news. He stood there in a black coat, his presence filling the small room without a word. He looked at her and then at the baby. His gaze softened for just a moment. "You don't know me," he said quietly, "but I know what it feels like to lose everything in a hospital room." Amelia's heart thudded. "How do you know about me?" He shrugged. "I was her." Visiting the children's wing, I overheard the nurse arguing about a mother being left with a canceled insurance plan. "I don't like watching good people suffer because of someone else's cruelty." She shook her head. "I can't accept this. You don't even know me. I don't need to know you," he said. "I just know what it looks like when someone's been left behind." His words hung heavy between them. He took out a small black card from his wallet and placed it gently on the table. "Ethan Vale, Hard Industries," he said softly. "If you ever need a job or a way forward, call that number. I don't offer pity. Amelia, I offer opportunity." Then he turned toward the door, pausing only once more to look at Noah. "Protect him," he said. "That boy deserves better than the world that man left you in after he left the room." Amelia sat frozen, staring at the black card under the fluorescent light. It shimmered like something unreal. She picked it up, tracing his name with her trembling fingers. "Ethan Vale," she whispered. The man who appeared from nowhere like a storm breaking through the darkest sky. Later that night, as the nurse wheeled her and Noah toward the exit, Amelia passed by the billing counter. The clerk smiled. "Your balance has been paid in full. Miss Hart by Mr. Ethan Vale." Her heart fluttered, and for the first time since the night of Noah's birth, she felt a strange, unfamiliar emotion, something dangerously close to hope. Outside the hospital, the cold wind brushed her face. She held her baby close, staring at the business card once more. A stranger had stepped into her life and changed everything without asking for anything in return. She had been abandoned in her moment of weakness, but maybe, just maybe, fate had sent her someone who could see her strength even when she could not. 3 weeks passed since Amelia left the hospital, and yet the memory of the man in the black coat lingered in her mind like a dream. She wasn't sure. As she believed in, she had folded the small business card and kept it hidden inside a book on her nightstand. Sometimes she would take it out and stare at the name Ethan Vale, wondering why a man like him, a man who lived in a world of power and glass towers, would stop to help someone like her. But she never called. She couldn't. She refused to let another man become her rescuer. Life was a series of long nights and longer mornings. She found a small apartment above a bakery where the smell of bread drifted through the cracked windows. She worked part-time at a bookstore, leaving Noah with the kind old woman who lived next door. It wasn't much, but it was honest. She paid bills one by one, counting coins with shaking hands each night. She whispered to her baby that everything would be fine, even when she wasn't sure it would be. One rainy afternoon, she was closing the shop. The bell above the door chimed, and she turned, expecting another late customer. Instead, it was him. Ethan Vale, standing there in a charcoal suit, his expression unreadable. The soft light from the window cut across his face, making his eyes look like storms waiting to break. Amelia froze, her breath catching in her chest for a moment. It felt as if the world had gone still. "I'm sorry to come unannounced," he said. "But you never called?" She tried to smile, pretending calm. "I didn't think your offer still stood. It always stands," he replied. "I came because I have a position at my company and I believe you're perfect for it." She frowned, confused. "A job?" "Yes, the Vale Foundation. It's an initiative we started for women who want to rebuild their lives. Single mothers especially. We help them find careers, not charity. Real work. You have experience in design? Yes. He paused, his gaze softening. I read the file from your hospital record. You worked in interior decor before your pregnancy. Amelia blinked, taken aback. How did you know that? I asked the nurse. He admitted simply. She mentioned you were once one of the best in your firm. She wanted to refuse her pride, screamed to say no. But the truth was, though, rent was due and the grocery money was almost gone, so she asked, what would I be doing? Ethan smiled for the first time since walking in, helping us create homes for children who have none. His words hit her like a quiet storm. He handed her a thin folder with an address inside. Meet me there tomorrow morning, he said. No pressure. If you don't show up, I'll understand, but something tells me you will. And then he left the store, leaving behind the scent of rain and cologne and a silence that throbbed with possibility. That night, Amelia couldn't sleep. She sat beside Noah's crib, watching his chest rise and fall. Her fingers brushing the card again, she remembered Ethan's face in the hospital, the steadiness in his voice, the way he had looked at her like she was not broken but worth saving. The next morning, the city shimmered under a pale sunrise. She stood outside a tall glass building, heart racing. The sign read Vale Industries. She almost turned back, but the security guard greeted her as if he'd been expecting her inside. Everything gleamed, marble floors, high ceilings, quiet. Power. A receptionist smiled. Miss Hart, Mr. Vale is waiting. The elevator doors opened to a space that didn't look like an office, but like a world built from discipline and vision. He stood by the window overlooking the city, coffee in hand, when he turned to face her. The morning light framed him like something unreal. You came, he said softly. I almost didn't, she admitted. His lips curved slightly. That's how you know it's worth doing then? He gestured to a desk near his own. This will be your workspace. Welcome to the foundation, Amelia. As she sat down, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safety. Not the kind that comes from walls or money, but from being seen for the first time since Ryan left her in that hospital room. She felt like her life wasn't ending. It was beginning again. She didn't know that this decision would pull her into a world far bigger and more dangerous than she could imagine, a world where hearts healed but secrets waited in the shadows, and where one man's kindness would soon become the most powerful storm of her life. Weeks passed, and Amelia became a quiet rhythm in the vast machine of Vale Industries. She arrived early, stayed late, and learned fast. The others whispered about her, the mysterious woman who somehow had the attention of Ethan Vale himself, but she ignored the rumors. She kept her head down, focused on her designs, and on the small framed photo of Noah she kept on her desk. That photo was her strength, her reason for every breath. Ethan rarely spoke during the day, but she felt his presence everywhere, his footsteps behind her, his shadow when she presented ideas, his silent approval when she didn't look at him yet. Somehow she always felt his eyes on her, calm, steady, patient. There was something in the way he moved that carried weight, as if he was used to being in control, but never comfortable with it. One evening, as the rest of the staff packed up for the night, Amelia stayed behind. The soft hum of rain echoed against the glass walls. She was sketching a concept for a new housing project when a deep voice broke the silence. Working late again. She turned to see Ethan leaning against the doorframe, his jacket off his tie, loosened his eyes, tired but kind. She smiled faintly. I like quiet places. He walked closer, glancing at her sketches. They're not just drawings, he said. They're hope. She laughed softly. Hope doesn't pay bills. Maybe not, but it builds futures, he replied. She looked at him for a moment and realized there was something different in his eyes, not the sharpness of a businessman, but the sadness of a man who'd once lost everything. The rain outside grew heavier, the office dimmed as lightning flashed across the sky. Ethan looked out the window. The storm reminds me of that night, he said quietly, his voice distant. Amelia waited, knowing better than to interrupt. My wife was in labor. He continued. She was driving to... Oh, the hospital alone. I was in a meeting trying to close a deal. The last thing I said to her was, "I'll be there soon." She never made it. His words hung in the air. Amelia's chest tightened. She whispered, "I'm sorry." "You don't have to be," he said. "It's my burden. But sometimes I wonder if fate sent me back here so I could make it right with someone else. Maybe with you." The thunder roared, shaking the windows. She didn't know what to say, her throat thick with emotion. Then the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. She gasped, but Ethan's voice came calm, steady. "It's all right. Stay where you are." She felt him move closer, his presence warm in the cold, black room. His hand brushed hers, accidentally. Electricity shot through her and she froze. She could feel his heartbeat so close, so real. The emergency lights flickered on and she saw his face inches from hers, rain streaking down the windows behind him. Something raw and unguarded in his eyes. "Amelia," he whispered, "you make this place feel alive again." She tried to pull away, but his hand caught her wrist gently, not to trap her, but to keep her from running from whatever this was, whatever he felt. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't need someone again." Ethan's expression softened. "You don't have to need me," he said. "Just let me care for you." That simple sentence shattered every wall she'd built inside her for the first time since that night in the hospital. She didn't feel small. She felt seen. Then her phone buzzed. Breaking the moment she looked down, Ryan's name flashed on the screen. Her stomach turned cold. Ethan noticed his eyes darkening. "Who is that?" "My past," she said quietly. "The one that doesn't want to stay buried." He reached out, turned off the phone and said, "Then let me help you bury it for good." The storm outside howled as thunder rolled over the city, and Amelia realized she was standing at the edge of something powerful, dangerous and real. A man haunted by guilt and a woman scarred by betrayal, drawn together by the same storm that had once broken them both. The storm that night marked the beginning of something neither of them could undo for days. Amelia and Ethan barely spoke about what happened, but every glance, every silence between them felt charged like the air before thunder. She tried to convince herself that what she felt was only gratitude, but deep down she knew it was more something dangerous, something alive. One Friday evening, she stayed late again, preparing final layouts for the new housing project. The city lights outside shimmered through the rain-streaked windows. The elevator chimed softly behind her, and she turned, expecting a security guard. Instead, it was Ethan, his shirt sleeves rolled up his tie. Gone, he looked nothing like the man who ran a billion-dollar empire. He looked human, tired, haunted, and entirely too close. "You missed dinner," he said quietly. "I brought food. Chinese. You like it, right?" She hesitated, then smiled. "How do you know what I like?" He lifted a brow. "I pay attention." They sat together on the edge of her desk, eating from small white cartons in silence. The smell of noodles and ginger filled the air. When he spoke again, his voice was low. "Do you ever stop waiting for someone who left?" She looked at him, startled by the question. "Sometimes I think I did. But then there are nights when I still hear the door open in my dreams and think he came back." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I used to dream that too. I'd wake up thinking my wife was beside me." He paused, then looked straight at her. "Until one day I realized I wasn't waiting anymore. I was surviving." Her breath caught. She wanted to say something, but before she could, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. Both froze. Ethan stood instantly, his instincts sharp. "Stay here," he ordered, moving toward the door, but she followed, ignoring him. The lights in the corridor flickered and a shadow moved near the exit, a man's silhouette, tall, familiar. The moment she saw him, her blood ran cold. "Raya." "Ah," he turned slowly, a cruel smile curling on his face. Well, look, who upgraded from bookstore girl to executive assistant?" He sneered. Ethan stepped between them. "Who are you?" Ryan's smile widened. "I'm her husband." Ethan's expression hardened. "You left her in a hospital bed," he said. "I read the report. What do you want?" Ryan stepped closer. "Money." What else I heard? You're her new savior. Figured it's only fair you pay for what you took. Ethan's tone turned icy. Get out before I have security remove you. Ryan laughed. You think your money scares me? It only makes me curious how much she's worth to you. Before Ethan could react, Amelia stepped forward, her voice trembling but fierce. Ryan, stop this. I won't let you ruin what I've built. Ryan's eyes darkened. I ruined nothing. You did when you forgot where you came from. He looked at Ethan one last time and said, You'll regret this, Vale, and walked away into the storm. The security team arrived minutes later, but he was gone, leaving only the echo of his threats. Ethan closed the office door, his voice sharp and protective. I should have known he'd show up sooner or later. Amelia, you need protection. I can't let you face him alone. She shook her head. I don't need a bodyguard, Ethan. I've survived worse than him. But Ethan didn't answer. Instead, he stepped closer, his hand brushing a strand of hair from her face. I don't want to protect you because I think you're weak. I want to because I care. She froze. Their eyes locked the air between them, heavy and trembling, and before she could speak, he kissed her. Not soft, not hesitant, but like a man who'd been holding his breath for years. The storm raged outside, lightning flashing through the glass like sparks of truth when they finally pulled apart. Amelia's tears mixed with his breath. This isn't simple, she whispered. It never is, he said. But it's real. Later that night, as she held Noah close in her small apartment, Amelia couldn't stop hearing Ethan's voice in her head. His promise, his warning, his kiss. She looked out at the rain-soaked city and felt the world shifting around her. She didn't know it yet, but that kiss had started a war between her past and her future, and only one of them would survive the next morning. Amelia woke to the sound of her phone buzzing over and over. She reached for it, half asleep, until she saw the message from an unknown number. You think you can hide behind him? You belong to me. Always. Her heart stopped. She knew that voice even through text. Ryan. She sat up, clutching Noah close, panic crawling under her skin. Then another message came, a photo taken from outside her building, a blurry shot of her window, before she could think. She called Ethan, her voice shaking. He didn't even let her finish the sentence. I'm on my way. Stay inside. Don't open the door. 20 minutes later, his black car pulled up outside her apartment and he stormed in with 2 security guards, his face carved from fury. Where's your phone? He demanded. She handed it to him. He read the messages, jaw tightening. I'll handle this, Amelia. No, you can't, she said, her voice breaking. If he feels cornered, he'll lash out. He always does. Ethan met her gaze, then said softly, Then we make sure he has nowhere to strike. By evening, Ethan moved her and Noah into one of his penthouse apartments high above the city. You'll be safe here, he promised. She tried to protest, but exhaustion won. She spent that night staring out at the skyline, lights flickering like distant stars, while Ethan worked in the next room making calls, setting up surveillance. She heard the edge in his voice. A man used to winning battles, now fighting one that felt personal. The following day, news broke online. Someone had leaked photos of her and Ethan together. Tabloids called her a gold digger. Headlines screamed the billionaire's secret affair. Ethan's legal team rushed to control it, but the damage was done. Strangers were already judging her every choice. She sat in the living room numb, watching her name trend on screens. She never wanted to be seen on. Ethan walked in, his tie, loosened, anger in his eyes. I know who did it, he said. Ryan sold the photos to the press. Why? She asked, barely able to breathe. To destroy you, he replied. But he doesn't understand you're not alone anymore that night. Ethan called a press conference to end the whispers. The cameras flashed as he stood on stage, his voice firm. This woman is not my scandal, she's my strength. Amelia Hart is the bravest person I've ever met. She saved me more than I could ever save her. I stand with her and I always will. The words hit the world like thunder. Headlines changed overnight. The internet flooded with support, mothers defending her people, sharing her story of survival. But behind the applause, a darker storm brewed. Ryan was furious that his plan failed. 2 nights later, a car followed Ethan's for miles through the city streets. He noticed in the rearview mirror and called his driver to turn into a private road. When the car stopped, he got out and waited, rain falling in sheets. Ryan stepped out of the other car, smirking. "You think this ends with a speech, Ethan?" He sneered. "You think she'll choose you when she realizes what kind of man you are?" Ethan's voice was calm, but deadly. "I know what kind of man I am, the one who stayed when you ran. Now get out of my sight." Ryan laughed low and cold. "You don't know everything about her veil, not yet, and when you do, you'll wish you'd never met her." Before Ethan could reply, Ryan drove off, vanishing into the night, leaving only his words behind like poison echoing in the rain. Ethan returned to the penthouse, his mind burning with questions. But when he opened the door and saw Amelia asleep on the couch with Noah in her arms, peace washed over him. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, whispering softly, "Whatever secret he thinks he has, it doesn't change this." But deep down he knew the game had changed. The man who, once abandoned her was now hunting shadows around her life, and Ethan could feel it. The next move wouldn't come from him or from the courts. It would come from whatever secret Ryan believed could tear them apart, and Ethan Vale was ready to face it, even if it meant burning his world to protect hers. The night felt too still for a city that never slept. Amelia sat by the window of Ethan's penthouse, staring at the skyline below, each light flickering like a heartbeat. She couldn't calm the unease inside her. Ryan's warning echoed in her head, the way he said it, not as a threat but as a promise. Something about it felt wrong, too specific, too confident. She looked over at Noah, asleep in his crib, peaceful, unaware of the storm building around them. Ethan walked in his jacket, off his eyes sharp with exhaustion. "You're still awake," he said softly. She turned to him. "I keep thinking about what he said. What if he knows something? Something that could hurt us?" Ethan moved closer, his voice steady. "Even if he does, we'll handle it together." But Amelia wasn't convinced. "You don't understand. Ryan always finds a way to twist the truth. He makes lies sound real." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then let him try," he said. "He'll realize what happens when he underestimates the wrong people." The next morning, the elevator doors opened to chaos. The lobby of Vale Industries was crowded with reporters flashing cameras, yelling questions. Ethan pushed through them, his hand firm on Amelia's back. One of the guards handed him a newspaper. The headline froze her blood. "Millionaire's lover exposed." Hidden marriage certificate underneath was a blurred image of a document with her name, and Ryan's still legally married, still bound by paper. Ethan's face darkened. "This is forged," he said. But she shook her head. "No, it's real. We never finalized the divorce." He left before signing it. Ethan's voice was low, controlled, but cold enough to make the air vibrate. "That means he owns leverage. He can claim adultery. He can ruin everything for you." That afternoon, Ethan's legal team filled the office, discussing options while Amelia sat silent, her hands gripping her knees. Suddenly, her phone buzzed, an unknown number again. A message appeared. "Meet me tonight, or the world sees what I know." Her chest tightened. "What do you know?" She texted back. Within seconds, a reply came. "Your son's birth certificate doesn't tell the full story. Meet me at Pier 17 midnight. Come alone." She felt the blood drain from her face. Ethan saw it immediately. "What is it?" She showed him the phone. He read it once, then twice, his expression turning from concern to fury. "He thinks he can use fear to control you," he said. "You're not going alone." "I have to," she said quietly. "If he really has something, I need to know what it is." Ethan shook his head. "No. If you go, he wins. If you don't, he'll strike anyway," she whispered. "Then we go together." Midnight came with heavy fog rolling off the river. Amelia's breath came out in trembling clouds as she stepped onto the wooden pier. Ethan's black car parked a distance behind. Watching every movement, Ryan appeared from the shadows, a smirk cutting across his face. "You came alone. Good girl." She clenched her fists. "What do you want?" Ryan leaned closer. "It's not about what I want. It's about what you deserve. The truth." He handed her a file folder. Inside were documents, photos, medical records. She flipped through them, confusion flooding her eyes until one page stopped her cold. her son's name at the top, and beneath it a note signed by hospital staff stating the father's identity was left blank. She looked up, shaking. "What are you trying to say?" He smiled wickedly. "I'm saying Noah might not be mine at all." She froze, unable to speak. Ryan whispered closer. "Ask your precious Ethan how he knew about your hospital records before you ever met him." Before she could react, headlights cut through the fog, Ethan's car speeding toward them, security guards pouring out. Ethan stormed forward, pulling her behind him, his eyes burning with fury. Ryan laughed low. "Dangerous, careful, Vale. You don't want her to hear what I found." Ethan lunged forward, grabbing. "His collar, say another word and you'll regret it." Ryan smirked. "Go ahead, hit me in front of her. Prove I'm right." For a heartbeat, Amelia saw something terrifying in Ethan's eyes. Not anger, but guilt. A flicker of truth he wasn't ready to explain. She whispered, "Ethan, what is he talking about?" His silence was enough. Ryan laughed louder. "You see, sweetheart, your knight in shining armor isn't as pure as he pretends. He was looking for you before that night at the hospital. He wanted something from you." Ethan's fist tightened, but Amelia stepped back, shaking her head. "Tell me he's lying. Ethan, please tell me he's lying." Ethan reached for her hand, his voice rough. "I found out about Ryan months before we met. I knew what he did. I donated to that hospital because I read your file. I wanted to help. But I never meant for you to find out this way." The sound of her heart breaking was louder than the river below. "So you knew who I was before that night," she said. "You knew everything, and you let me believe it was chance." Ethan took a step closer. "I wasn't trying to manipulate you. I was trying to save you." She pulled her hand away from his trembling voice, whispering, "You're no different from him." She turned and walked into the fog, her tears mixing with the mist. Ethan called her name, but she didn't look back. She only held on to one truth. Everything she thought was fate might have been a lie, and now she didn't know who to trust, the man who broke her or the man who saved her. The fog swallowed Amelia as she walked away, her heart pounding against the cold night air. Every word Ryan said echoed in her mind until she could barely breathe. Ethan had known about her before that night at the hospital. He had known about Ryan, about the baby, about everything. It wasn't fate, it was design. The truth cut deeper than any betrayal because it came from the one man who had made her believe in love again when she reached her apart. Meant. She locked the door behind her and slid to the floor. Noah slept soundly in his crib, unaware that his mother's world was falling apart. She sat there in the dark, her hands trembling, remembering Ethan's eyes when he admitted it, the guilt, the pain, the silence that told her everything she needed to know. She wanted to hate him, but hate required strength, and she had none left. The next morning, headlines spread across the internet. Billionaire exposed Vale-targeted woman linked to secret investigation. Every channel replayed her picture next to Ethan's as if they were part of some scandal. She never asked to be in. It seemed the world was determined to twist her story again. Ethan tried to reach her, but she blocked his calls, his messages, his name. Everything she wanted to disappear, but fate wasn't done with her yet. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, a black car pulled up outside her building. She froze when the knock came. It wasn't Ethan. It was Grace Vale, his sister, tall, confident, with the same piercing eyes, but warmer, more human. She held out a folder, her voice calm. "Please let me in." Amelia hesitated, then stepped aside. Grace placed the folder on the table. "You need to see this before you decide who to hate," she said quietly. Inside were photos and reports, pages of documents linking Ryan to a network of stolen charity funds money laundered through fake foundations under his name. The same foundations Ethan had been investigating for months. Grace's voice was steady. "Ethan found your husband's name on a list of people stealing from hospitals, including the one where you gave birth. He didn't tell you because he wanted proof before he ruined your peace." Amelia stared at the pages, tears welling up again. "He was protecting me," she whispered. Grace nodded yes, but he made a mistake. He tried to protect you by lying instead of trusting you to handle the truth. Ethan's fault has never been cruelty, it's guilt. He still blames himself for not saving his wife. The door burst open before they could speak again. Ethan's security. Guard stumbled inside, bleeding from the shoulder, his voice hoarse. "He found us. Ryan's here." Grace ran to help him, but a shadow moved in the hallway. Heavy footsteps, slow, deliberate. Ryan's voice echoed through the apartment. "Didn't I say you belong to me?" Amelia. He stepped into view, his eyes wild, his hand holding a small pistol. "You think you can hide behind their money?" He sneered. "It all started with you, and it ends tonight." Grace reached for her phone, but he aimed the gun at her. "Don't even think about it," Ryan said. "You destroyed my life, my business, my name, but at least I can take back what's mine." Amelia stood, frozen, her hands trembling. Noah began to cry in the next room. She whispered, "Please, Ryan, don't do this." He laughed, the same cruel sound she remembered from the night he left. "I did you a favor by walking away, but you just couldn't stay quiet. You had to run into his arms." Behind him, a quiet click echoed. Ethan stood at the doorway, soaked from rain, his voice low and sharp. "Put the gun down." Ryan turned slowly, his smile dark. How poetic the hero arrives too late. Ethan stepped forward, every muscle tense. "You want to hurt me? Not her. Let her go." Ryan aimed the gun toward him, then back at Amelia. "Make a choice, Vale. Her or you." Ethan's eyes never left hers. "If it means she lives, then me." In that second, Ryan hesitated long enough for Grace to grab the lamp and swing it. The gun fired. The sound deafening. Glass shattered. Ryan fell back, clutching his shoulder, the weapon clattering to the floor. Ethan rushed to Amelia, pulling her close as sirens wailed in the distance. The police took Ryan away, screaming threats, promising revenge, but the sound faded under the rush of relief. Ethan held her trembling face. "I should have told you everything from the start," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought protecting you meant keeping secrets. I was wrong." She looked up, tears streaking her cheeks. "I wanted to hate you, but when you walked in tonight I realized I couldn't because you're the only one who ever stayed." The ambulance lights painted the walls red and blue as they stood together holding Noah between them. Outside, the world roared with chaos, but inside that small room something healed. Ethan whispered, "I will spend the rest of my life proving that you can trust me." Amelia looked into his eyes, and for the first time since the night she gave birth, she believed someone meant those words. The storm had finally broken, but what came next would test them both, because even though Ryan was gone, the truth about Ethan's past still waited in the shadows, ready to rise again. Days passed after the night of the gunfire, but the echoes never left Amelia. Every sound still made her heart race, every shadow reminded her of Ryan's voice, even though he was now behind bars. Peace didn't come. It just waited like a predator in the dark. Ethan moved her and Noah to his private estate on the cliffs far from the city. He promised safety, yet the silence there felt too perfect, too still. One evening, as the wind howled against the windows, Amelia stood on the balcony wrapped in a blanket. The ocean below roared like an untamed beast. Ethan joined her, his hand brushing hers. "You're safe now," he said softly. But she didn't answer because safety was a word that had lost its meaning. "I thought once he was gone it would feel over," she whispered, "but it doesn't." He looked at her with tired eyes. "It's not over yet." The next morning Grace arrived, pale and trembling with a tablet in her hand. "You need to see this," she said, her voice shaking. She placed the screen on the table. News headlines filled the screen. Ethan Vale under federal investigation. Allegations of fraud linked to Ryan Cooper's companies. Amelia's breath caught. "What is this?" Ethan took the tablet, his jaw tightening. "This is exactly what Ryan wanted before he went down." He left. "Something behind evidence forged data. My company is being dragged into it." She stared at him. "You mean we're being dragged into it?" He looked at her and nodded. "Yes, because you're part of my life now, and they'll use that against us." "I won't let them," she said fiercely, but Ethan's expression darkened. "It's not that simple. They'll dig into everything, our past, your records, the hospital, your son's birth." His words stopped as he realized what he had said. Her son's birth. Her pulse quickened. What about my son, Ethan? What aren't you telling me? He turned away, his hands trembling. There's something I found when we reopened the Foundation files, he said quietly. Your medical chart was tampered with that night. Ryan wasn't the one who signed the release. Someone else did. She took a step closer, confused. Who? Ethan looked up, meeting her eyes with guilt. Me, I signed it. The world seemed to tilt around her. You what? Why? Because I was already investigating Ryan's company. Back then, I discovered a list of women whose medical bills had been stolen through false charity programs. Yours was one of them. I had to confirm the details, but the hospital refused, so I authorized the file release myself. I didn't know it would lead me to you. Her mind spun. You looked into my life before you even knew me. You violated my privacy. Ethan's voice broke. I was trying to stop him from hurting more people, not you. Before she could reply, the house alarm went off. A high, sharp sound that sliced through the air. Ethan grabbed her hand. Get Noah now. Security lights flooded the property. Footsteps thundered outside. Men in dark clothing scaled the wall. Ethan's guards ran toward them, shouting orders. Gunfire cracked across the courtyard. The nightmare had returned. He pulled Amelia and Noah into the panic room below the main floor. The metal door sealed behind them, his voice low and urgent. It's not random. Someone tipped them off. They're after the files. Amelia held Noah close as the sound of boots echoed above her. Mind racing. Ethan, what if Ryan planned this before his arrest? What if it's not just about the money? He looked at her eyes burning with realization. No, it's worse. It's about revenge. He wants to destroy everything connected to you and to me. An explosion shook the house dust raining from the ceiling. Ethan moved toward the control panel, calling his team. But the line was dead. He turned back to Amelia. You have to trust me now. She nodded, trembling, as he unlocked a hidden drawer and pulled out a small metal case. Inside were 2 flash drives. He handed one to her. If anything happens to me, give this to Grace. It proves everything. Who did this? Why Ryan's network was never just him. There are others, powerful people, and they won't stop until I'm silenced. She grabbed his arm, her voice fierce. We'll survive this together, do you hear me? You saved me once, let me save you too. He looked at her, then at Noah, and for a moment something inside him cracked. The man who had built empires, the man who never bowed to anyone, suddenly looked human, scared and in love. The pounding outside grew louder. Ethan turned to the door, ready to fight as smoke seeped through the vents. Amelia clutched her son, whispering over and over, Please hold on, please don't let this be the end. And then just as the lights flickered and the metal door buckled open, the sound of police sirens filled the air, cutting through the chaos. Like salvation, Grace's voice shouted from above, Everyone stand down, hands where I can see them. The attackers were dragged away, the fire extinguished, but the damage was done. The house was in ruins. Ethan's world was collapsing around him yet. As he looked at Amelia, covered in ash, holding Noah close, he whispered, Maybe this is how we start again from nothing. She looked back, tears and soot mixing on her cheeks. As long as we're together, we already have everything. The night wind howled through the broken wind. Ows, but for the first time, the storm felt like a promise, not a threat. The morning after the fire, the world woke to headlines that turned Ethan Vale from savior to suspect. His empire was under siege, his name dragged through mud, his accounts frozen, his partners turning away one by one. Amelia watched it unfold on television as she held Noah close, the anchor's voice cold and distant. Billionaire accused of funding underground networks through false charities. Evidence recovered from his destroyed mansion. She turned off the screen, her chest tightening. Ethan was outside talking to investigators, his face pale, his eyes hollow. When he walked in, he looked like a man standing on the edge of everything he had built. They want to arrest you, she said quietly. He nodded. Yes. They think I knew what Ryan was doing. They think I helped him steal from the Foundation. They have no proof, she said desperately. He looked at her with a sad smile. Not yet. Grace entered, holding her phone. The court hearing is tomorrow, she said, and they want you there. Amelia to testify as a witness. Ethan froze. A witness or a weapon? Grace sighed, both. If they can't break him, they'll use her. That night, they sat together in silence on the broken patio, the ocean wind biting at their skin. Ethan's hand found hers. "I should have told you everything sooner," he said. "I was afraid you'd see me the way the world does, a man who destroys everything he touches." She looked at him. "You didn't destroy me. You saved me. And maybe now it's my turn to save you." The next morning, the courtroom was full, cameras flashing the air thick with judgment. Ethan stood before the judge, his voice calm. "I built my company to heal what others broke. I never profited from pain. I only tried to stop it." The prosecutor smirked. "Words are easy, Mr. Vale. Let's talk about evidence." The screen behind him lit up, showing photos of documents marked with Ethan's signature transfers leading to shell accounts under his name. Amelia felt the world tilt, until she noticed something strange. The date on the files was the same night Ethan's servers had been hacked. She rose from her seat before Grace could stop her. "Your Honor," she said. "May I speak?" The judge hesitated, then nodded. She walked to the front, her voice steady. "These files are fake. The metadata shows they were created after the fire, not before someone used the chaos to rewrite the story." The prosecutor scoffed. "And who would do that?" Amelia turned her head. "Ryan Cooper." A ripple of shock spread through the room. Grace stepped forward, handing a drive to the bailiff. "This contains the real records," she said, intercepted from Ryan's prison laptop. "He contacted an outside group to forge the evidence. He planned everything." The judge studied the data for what felt like forever, before finally speaking. "Mr. Vale, you are cleared of all charges." The courtroom erupted, cameras flashing again, but this time the headlines would be different. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded them. Ethan shielded Amelia from the crowd, his voice low. "How did you find out?" She smiled faintly. "Grace tracked his emails, but I knew Ryan wouldn't stop even behind bars. He's obsessed with control, and that obsession just buried him." Ethan looked at her, the sun catching the edge of her hair. "You always surprise me." "Amelia Hart?" She shook her head. "No, I just learned from the best. Months passed, the world moved on. Vale Industries rebuilt stronger. The foundation grew twice its size, every project dedicated to families like hers, the ones left behind. Amelia took charge of design, creating homes that carried warmth instead of walls. And every evening, Ethan came home to the small seaside house where Noah ran barefoot through the sand, shouting for him to chase him through the waves. One evening, as the sky turned gold, Ethan called out to her from the porch. "Come here," he said. She joined him, laughing when he lifted Noah high into the wind. "What are you doing?" she asked. He smiled, teaching him to fly. Then he turned to her more serious. "You once said you would never need anyone again," he said. "Maybe that's true, but I still need you." She looked at him, the man who had once been a stranger paying her hospital bill, the man who had walked through fire to protect her. And she said quietly, "Maybe we both needed saving." He kissed her forehead and whispered, "Maybe that's what love really is. Two broken people who keep choosing each other until they're whole again." As the tide came in, washing away the footprints in the sand, Amelia watched Noah running free and thought about how life had come full circle. She had been left in a hospital room to give birth alone. But the man fate sent after that moment didn't just say, "You're mine now." He proved it every day in the way he loved her, in the way he stayed. She had found her forever. Not in perfection, but in the ashes of what tried to destroy her. And this time, she knew no storm, no shadow, and no man would ever take it away.